in northwest Spain. I had some issues with technology in these last 48 hours. Like yesterday, Facebook was like freezing every time I wanted to post something. And today, YouTube would not allow me to stream in horizontally. So I have to stream vertically from the harbor of Coruña. These few tips about what to do, what to see when you arrive to Coruña on a cruise ship. And I have a good example because there is behind me one of our frequent visitors. So every day in May and every day in September, then there will be 1, 2, up to once there were 6 cruise ships at the same time in this corner in northwest Spain. On their way, normally in this season, many of these ships have spent a few months in the Mediterranean or so, and they're on the way to the north. And they bring passengers from different nations to visit us. So I'm going to change the camera and I'm going to explain to you what options you have if you're spending a few hours arriving to Coruña on such a cruise ship. So welcome everybody. It was a pleasure meeting many of you in the last stream edit last week after so much time missing you. So let's change the camera. Excuse my finger, always missing. Right. So I'm panning around so that you see the Bay of Coruña. Essentially, Coruña is a small city, 250,000 inhabitants, but an important harbor where you can see in the background the cranes and containers for cement, cereals and industrial things. But then as I pan further, you see the fishing area for the fishermen and then the passengers area. One of the privileges of arriving to Coruña on a cruise ship is that there isn't any hotel that is more centric than the cruise ships are. They're exactly in front of the city center of downtown Coruña. So you see the dark buildings, and I'm gonna need to zoom a little in. So that dark building is the Congress Hall, and just behind it, there is the pillar that marks like the central point of the city, the obelisco. And I'm going to just swim out. So this is the old harbor and the beautiful seafront of Coruña, and behind here the old city. So that I'm going to cross, although the signal is not very good. So normally cruise ships hire local travel agents to offer excursions, offshore excursions, either panoramic tours of Coruña, pedestrian tours of downtown, but also like 3-4 hours excursions. So this way further south, 1 hour away, there is the historic city of Santiago de Compostela, and I've done streams of this place. And this way, so this is the Bay of Coruña, there are excursions around the bay and also visiting the cities and bays beyond. So behind that hill, there, like half an hour away, there is Betanzos. 40 minutes away, there is Pontedeume. There are very interesting panoramic tours of the coastline. Some of the pedestrian excursions, that would be like 2-3 hour tours. So if they are 3-hour tours, they might include a museum. And now I'm going to zoom again. Oops, I went too far away. So that you can see this castle here. This was an island with a castle from the 16th century. This is the Archaeological Museum that might be included in some of the tours. And another tour I did that you can actually see on my YouTube channel is this garden, which is needing again some treatment for the dying trees. They are very old elm trees that have a disease. So you either on a tour that you hire or on your own, the first thing I would advise you to see in Coruña is the old town. So from here you don't see how interesting the old streets are. Just behind this first row of buildings that replace the medieval city walls. So the medieval city walls were demolished 1869. I've been touring German guests all the week, so I say the numbers the German way. So 1869, 1869, these city walls were demolished and these houses replaced them. So these are 19th and 20th century houses, and just behind them, this is where the real old streets are. with even medieval buildings like the main historic churches. So this was an important street before. You can see tabernas in Spanish, taverns. So when you left your ship after weeks on the ocean, you were thirsty and wanted to drink something that wasn't particularly water. So this street in former times would have been full of taverns where you drank whatever you wanted to. Nowadays, there are nice, luxurious houses like this one on the white. So this dates back to 100 years ago, when the fashion for architecture was a style we call modernismo in Spain, and you will see plenty of houses with heavily decorated facades from that period in Coruña. It was the golden age of the economy of the city between 1870 and 1920. And just behind this is the medieval church of St. James. Unfortunately today we will see some scaffolding, there's some construction going on. The good thing is, being a Saturday afternoon, the workers are off, so we don't have the noise this week. It was a pain in the guiding tours, in-person tours here, with the machines being extremely noisy. So this St. James Church is considered to be the oldest church in Coruña from the 12th century, although there are some additions later on, particularly after it had some damages due to fire in the 13th and 15th centuries. So I think I need to zoom out a little bit to show this beautiful stone decoration. And unfortunately, the weather is not good, it's overcast, so the light is not the best. The little terrace, the little balcony here in front of the church, will be used like 800 or 900 years ago as the meeting point for locals to organize everyday life, what we now have city halls for. So the elites of the city would meet here and organize like taxes, armies, whatever. So these old streets have plenty of charming little gardens, interesting little churches, and a few historic military buildings. So that is what the old city of Coruña has to offer. A warning though, you need to be fit, because most streets go uphill. It's not very flat. It is an old hill that could be easily defended with the city walls, strong stone walls, against the frequent attacks. Imagine in the Middle Ages, Vikings and the such. This is a view that I like to show because it is where you see the best, the different building periods of the church. The bottom half of the building uses a darker material, a darker stone. This is the original 12th century building. The upper parts have a lighter stone from the 13th, 15th centuries. And on the side you have the bell tower that doesn't really belong to the church. It would be like a warning tower where they had kept, control of dangers, either invaders or locally fires and revolts that they could call for alarms with the bells. And this is one of the major historic military buildings, Capitania. I'm now going across one of these green squares with big mature trees, which is the Plaza General Azcárraga. So the trees were planted into the 19th century. This is also when the fountain was added. For many, many centuries, this open square would have been the market for anything related to cereals, for grain, wheat, rye, corn, then also processed flour, and bread. The fountain made in Paris is cast iron and represents a lady, like symbolic goddess of good luck, good business in the middle of the market. The trees above my head, they're leafing out. Now we are at the end of spring. These are plain trees used for shade in many Mediterranean areas. And these are evergreens. These are magnolia trees. They will bloom in the summer. So you see, I could go further uphill and see more little green squares and more little old churches. But I need you to come to Coruña to see all of that, because this is an area where the signal is very bad. And although I attempted to do some streams from over there, they were problematic. That's the least I can say. So I'm going down along this street of the ladies, Rua de Donas. The best aristocratic families lived along this main street downtown on the old town. So there would be nice palaces on either side and elegant ladies coming up and down this street to the present main square, which is just at the bottom. So excuse the scaffolding. These old areas, many old houses are now being refurbished, which is a good thing, because up to a few years ago it was cheaper, more convenient to build new apartment buildings in vacant lots, but now real estate has gone up dramatically and it's starting to be worth the while investing in restoring old historic buildings that then they will sell or rent out at high prices. So if you ever come to Coruña and want to grab something to eat, you're going to see in a minute there are many elegant restaurants around the main square, but if you want cheaper kind of food, they don't charge as much if you just come to the side streets like this one. So this street's name is Capitan Troncoso. You can see here the name. And these are very interesting traditional Spanish restaurants. At the end you also have an elevator to go uphill so that you reach the tip of the old city without suffering of the going uphill these narrow steep streets of the old town. So the main square is here. The main square is named after a local hero, Maria Pita. She lived in Coruña, and there is a lot of wind. I hope it doesn't disturb the sound. But this lady, the statue in the middle, represents her. She lived in Coruña when the city was assaulted by Francis Drake, 1589. Her husband was killed, but she fought herself. It is said she took her husband's sword in her hand and led the citizen of Coruña, so that finally the English gave up, and she was rewarded by the Spanish king with a salary, like if she were an officer of the Spanish army. So she raised money enough to remarry and remarry and remarry. She survived her husbands and died aged 86, and she's the local hero. Now, of course, this is a modern representation of her. We have no clue of how she looked like in her youth when all this happened. There is a portrait of her in her old age, but it was made after she died. And you see the elegant houses that surround the main square. And I'm panning around so that I show you the city hall. It was built between 1911 and 1917. So if you need more information, the building exactly under the green scaffolding, this is where the tourist office information is. So it's open. You need to go behind the scaffolding, under the porches, under the arches, to enter the tourist information office. And you are seeing that there are several buildings, balconies like these. I'm going to zoom here so that you see the colors, the blue and white colors of the local soccer team. I might improvise a live stream tomorrow on my Instagram channel about the celebrations, because the local soccer team, you say soccer in America, we say football in Europe, is aiming to go up in the Spanish league. So it's right now the big crisis of the city is the team was fallen in the third Spanish league, and we hope to manage to go back to more honorable competitions. So you see the harbour is just over there. This is the tip of the ship. But instead of going straight there, I'm going to show you a different area of the city, which is the former fishermen's district. So some of the tours I do for different travel agents that work with cruise ships would include either the walking in the old city or a combination of the old city behind me uphill and these flat grounds in front that we call the fishermen's district, where there are the shopping areas and also nice little cafes and restaurants. And for instance, for the German company AIDA, one of the tours includes having Spanish hot chocolate with fried churros, and this is a tour that would be particularly suited in a cloudy day like today. So again, more balconies decorated with the colors of the local soccer team, Deportivo de La Coruña, but shortened in Depor in this flag in the middle. So I don't know if you can appreciate, but the ship is calling. It's about to depart. So normally, actually there was today as well, half an hour before departure, when last moment for passengers to get in, there will be one of these warnings. And now, just 5 minutes before they depart, there will be another one. So I'm going to stop here to show one of the gastronomy things. So pulpo in Spanish is octopus, and this is one of the gastronomic specialities. So you see, this is a refrigerated window where you see boiled octopus. So this is the Royal Street. This would have been the main street across the fishermen's district, the street that had the most shops later on. So right now you see, like, for ice creams, for shoes, for jewelry, like here, some smaller hotels, a pharmacy, a second hand. So this is where you see this Frankenstein. This is a second hand store. It has mostly books and comics. This is for collectors. And on the other side of the street, this is the back side of the restaurants that are actually on the seafront. So they many of them, like this one, have a second entrance from the rear, and you have either Spanish brands or international ones. I assume you are familiar with Burger King. But see, on top, the higher levels of the buildings, many of these buildings have masts and poles for flags, because at some point there would have been embassies. So if you want to spend money in shopping, not only there is this street where I am, but it goes further beyond. So straight ahead, when this street ends, there is a second area further beyond, which is the Picasso district, which is also part. There is another tour I do on streams of the Picasso area, where Pablo Picasso lived as a child, where you would see more larger shops of even more expensive brands. And the street that runs parallel to this one on my right hand side is much narrower. So again, I would have issues with cell coverage there. But this is where most restaurants are. I mentioned earlier, like cheaper traditional Spanish restaurants, particularly for seafood, because Coruña is the best harbor in Spain for fish and seafood. So I'm going to point with my finger, but I'm not going to get too close. That street here that goes back to the main square, the Calle Franja, for instance, has lots of restaurants. And you see this black yarn. So behind here, there is the Calle Galera and the Calle Barrera, also full of little restaurants. But I'm going on the main shopping street for a little, Calle Real. And you can see the name over there. So you can see the elegant architecture of the buildings and very tempting shops like this one, specialized in chocolate and dried fruit. So you see there are more and more people walking along the street. Saturday afternoon. So mostly locals. The ship is departing, so all tourists are back on board. So these are locals enjoying the last dry afternoon. We are expecting another week of heavy rain starting tomorrow at noon. So one of the things we're very proud in Coruña is we taught Pablo Picasso to paint. He lived here as a child, and this is a plaque where you can read. He had his first exhibit here aged 13, when this was not a shoe shop but a furniture shop owned by friends of his family. And you see how elegant these houses are along the Royal Street. So remember, in Coruña you can walk uphill, downhill in the medieval streets of the Ciudad Vieja, the old town. You can walk flat ground here to do shopping and go to restaurants. And I'm not going there myself now, but if I turn to the right, any of these narrow little streets that start from here towards the white, I would reach in just 5 minutes walk the beaches, the other side of the city. So see, well, now there is scaffolding, but you can appreciate how narrow the side streets are. So at the end of this street, 400 meters, that's a quarter of a mile, you would be on the beach. So just 10 minutes walk from the ship, you can reach the beaches of Coruña, which are actually cold Atlantic water. Not so warm for bathing and swimming. They are perfect for surfing though. Surfing is one of the favorite activities among young people in Coruña. So just at the end here where you see open space, this is the corporate buildings at the end, the obelisco, and I'm turning towards the ship because I'm going to show you one I consider one of the only problems for people arriving to Coruña on a cruise ship is it's hard to find the pedestrian entrance to the harbour due to these big buildings. So the ship is just behind those dark buildings over there, but you cannot see it because of the buildings. So as a reference, this on the left is the post office, and there you have what I showed at the start, the dark glass buildings of the Congress Hall, we call Palex, the Palace of Exhibitions and Congresses. And it is only when you get closer that you have a glimpse at the cruise ship. So once you get to the fences, there are signs, but when you are out here, you don't see the cruise at all, except the biggest, bulkiest ones, like those that are above 5,000 passengers. Then they would emerge above these buildings. But all the others, because we are too close, we don't see them at all. So now you will have a look. So you see the sign, cruise terminal. They will have you walk here in between these buildings. And the building on the right was built as a shopping center, but because there was a lot of construction around for several years, most shops closed due to lack of business, and the only surviving businesses are the cinemas in the town, in the top level, and the huge disco in the ground floor called Pelikino, opens for the weekends. So these were probably locals that went to see the ship departing. So out of curiosity. So again, you can see the banner cruise terminal at the end, showing you how you have to go. So there is across these fenced areas a control where you show your boarding card, and only passengers and people that have a special permit can access the harbour. This is since September 11, the security measures. So the ship was here a few minutes ago and just left. So I'm going to go to the end of the fence, see if we can see it. So this little building on the right is the passengers terminal that you need to cross and have the security control. And you see the ship has just left. It's in the background. I'm going to zoom a little for you to see. So here I am at the end of this terrace. Now I need to zoom a little so that you see the ship departing around the whole city, and then the passengers will have in a few minutes the best view as they reach the end of the peninsula and they see our pride and glory, our iconic landmark, which is the lighthouse, the only Roman lighthouse. Another of my tours, the oldest lighthouse in the world, the only Roman lighthouse that's still on duty to this moment. So, zooming out again and changing the camera. So you see my face and my messy hair. It's very windy today. Not as much as it will be, but still windy enough. I hope it did not disturb the sound too much. So this was Monica from Coruña, northwest Spain, showing you a little of this old town, a little of these pedestrian streets full of shops and restaurants. So even if you don't buy an excursion from the ship, you know that just 5-10 minutes from the ship you have plenty of options to spend money or have fun. You can also buy excursions so that you would have guided tours that will explain to you all the details of these streets and monuments that you see. Also longer excursions to go further beyond Coruña in the outskirts, and there will be a lot of beautiful coastal landscape, and some of them will also include some beverages and food, Spanish snacks, Spanish tapas. So don't be afraid of coming out of the ship. There will be things to do, things to see whenever you come to Coruña on a cruise ship. So next week, another stream, and hopefully I can manage to use the horizontal stream on YouTube. I don't know why, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But next week I will be in Lugo, either vertically or horizontally streaming from the historic city of Lugo. So I hope to see you there. Thank you for coming. Bye bye.